So I can honestly say that this watch I'm going to show you today is my absolute favorite non-mechanical watch that I've ever experienced and has ever been in my collection. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. And today I'm going to be doing the full in-depth review of my Bulova Computron, a watch that sort of freaked me out when I bought it because I didn't put much time, energy or research into considering the purchase of this watch. Normally when I buy a watch, I put a lot of thought into it. I watch reviews, I look online, I read about it, I try and find it for the best price, and then I make a decision about whether I should buy the watch or not. This one, I saw it and I thought, wow, that's cool. I looked online, I found the cheapest that I could find it for, and I pressed buy it now. I then slightly regretted that purchase. I thought, oh, maybe I should cancel this order. Maybe I spent too much on this watch. Am I going to like it? Was it a waste of my money? But obviously I didn't cancel that order. I'm so glad that I didn't, because this has turned out to be such a wonderful watch, a watch that I absolutely love. Now this watch cost me 375 Australian dollars, which at the time felt like a huge amount of money. But since then, since looking now at the prices that are available for this watch online, that's actually a pretty good price. In fact, generally it is selling for much more than that. But I do want to talk about that price a little bit more, but I'll do that at the end of the video. So obviously I'm very happy that I didn't cancel that order. I'm very glad that I spent that $375 because it's turned out to be my absolute favorite non-mechanical watch in my collection. A watch that I actually really enjoy wearing, a watch that I really enjoy looking at, and a watch that I reach for over the top of my other mechanical watches fairly often. And that is because this watch is really well made, it's really fun, and I just like it on wrist. Now I went for the stainless steel model with the blue screen. Those colors really work for me and I really like the look of them. But if you want something a little bit different, you can also get a golden version. I think that has a red screen, and there's also like a black silicone, black rubber version with a green screen. Now the prices do vary depending on the model. So if you are interested in this style of watch and not this specific one that I'm showing you today, make sure you do sort of do research before buying one. But now let's flip the camera now and let me show you this watch in a full in-depth review, my Bulova Computron. Let's check it out. So on paper, this Bulova 96C139 is sort of getting some interesting stuff because you're getting quite an interesting box. You're getting a vintage style sort of reissue watch, solid stainless steel, blue LED, and a super interesting design, because this watch, it is all about this super interesting design. What else do you get? You get this big cushion, you get a hang tag telling you what that sort of number is, you get some warranty paperwork, nothing specifically that interesting. The box itself is okay, but it's really what is sort of inside the box which counts, which is the watch. And it's when I got this one in hand that is all when my preconception sort of changed, because I expected it to be kind of a cool, retro, interesting watch. What I didn't expect is it to be this sort of quality, because the weight, the feel, the solid stainless steel sort of aspect of it didn't really come across on the page or on the screen when I was looking at it. This watch has some real presence to it, both in your hand and when it's on your wrist, which is quite interesting. I was also a little bit worried when I bought it that perhaps it was a little bit too retro for me, but I'm going to say that I actually really like it. It's real fun. Now, please excuse fingerprints throughout this review because there's a lot of shiny surfaces here and I'll spend the whole time cleaning it off if I'm going to try and sort of keep them away. So just look past them, please. It is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but to be honest, it probably shows up on screen more so than it does in real life. Plus, you don't tend to be doing this with a watch when you're wearing it. It's just on your wrist, so you're not getting as many smudge marks. Now let's talk about dimensions, but keep in mind that this is a bit of an interesting shape, so it doesn't really wear like the dimensions suggest, because side to side, like the case diameter, I guess, is 31. The thickness of it up at the top here at the most high point is 13.5, going down to 11 millimeters down there on the bottom. 40 millimeter lug to lug, which means this watch is going to fit everybody. When you think sort of 31 by 40, you think that's not going to be much, but to be honest, it sits on wrist really well. Now, it has 19 millimeter lug width, but that's from there to there. You can see it actually flares out, however, so it's actually effectively 25.5, and then it tapers all the way down to 16 millimeters. So it has a really nice feel on wrist. And this weighing to fit my 6 3/4, about 17 centimeter wrist, is 117 grams. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the entire thing is polished. Even those ridges there are all polished. Sides are polished. There's a sort of a chamfered edge there. You can see up and around the sides, which are polished. Of course, the other side's polished as well. The entire bracelet is polished as well. The sides, the edges and those ridges. Those ridges are actually quite deep. I wasn't really expecting them to be as deep as they are. It's a little bit hard to show off on camera, but have a listen. When you actually run your nail across it, it actually makes a noise because it is actually quite deep. So it has some real sort of interesting sort of a depth to it. Gives you some real interesting light play as well, which is kind of cool. Now this one here is obviously the stainless steel version. It does come in a couple of different other variations though. There is a sort of full stainless steel version that is gold or a gold plated. I'm not really a big gold person, so the silver one definitely stood out to me. But there's also like a silicone or a rubber version of it, which actually is a little bit cheaper than the steel versions. But I really like the stainless steel version. And to be honest, I love blue and silver together, so this one really did stand out to me. When we are looking at that LED screen, you can see it's not lit up. You actually have to hit the button in order to get anything lit up on this one, which can be a bit of a negative, and I'll talk about that later. But let's stay on talking about the watch for the moment. There's a little button on the side here, which is recessed. That is your sort of mode button to flick through the settings and to be able to change the date. Let's get on to the bracelet here. As I mentioned, it is sort of a ridged and all polished, and it sort of flares out and then goes right down. But what you might notice is these full stainless steel solid links, they're quite big. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it does feel really nice, but it does mean when it is sitting on wrist, you do kind of get that effect. So you actually see bits of it sticking out a little bit. It does sort of add to that sort of retro vibe to it though, to be honest. Now the clasp continues that pattern all the way across it. It is a friction clasp, which is not my favorite. However, one thing that I do really like about these friction clasps generally like this is how thin it is, because look how low that profile is compared to the bracelet. Really nice. Absolute heaps of micro adjust there. And whilst we're looking there, you'll see the pins there. They are split pins. And I kind of get that they're not screw heads, these ones, because these are actually fairly thin sort of links, and having screws in there, they'd be tiny little screw heads. So I kind of understand why they're sort of, they're split pins and not sort of screw pins there. But when we flick this one open, the other way here, it opens quite nicely, all milled inside, which is quite cool. And the case back there, that's sort of the little opening there, or the porthole opening there, to be able to change your battery out. But let's get back to the screen, because this is where everything happens. This is how you can tell the time. And it's a mineral crystal. I have checked, it's not sapphire. You can see that it's not lit up at all. And in order to be able to see it, what's really good about this one is you don't actually need to turn the lights off, because it's really, really bright. Even in direct sunlight, you press that button, you can see that time really well. But of course, if you turn the lights off, it's even brighter, which is really cool. Yeah, it really does stand out. Now, I have been wearing this one actually a lot more than I actually expected, to be honest, with this sort of style of watch. Wearing it out during the day, and that brightness, even in direct sunlight, is perfectly fine. You can easily read the time. However, it does more than just tell the time, because if you press it once, you get the time. You press it twice, you get the seconds. 3 times, you get the date. 4 times, you get the day of the week. 5 times is a second time zone. And then back to the time again. So you actually do have quite a few features on this one, but you do just have to keep tapping it away. But if you just hit it once, it lasts for about 4 seconds. So it's look at it, hit the time, check the time, look away. No sort of automatic function here. You must hit that button. And on wrist, it is really cool. Now, as we see there, check out that bracelet. See how you get this sort of, you can see the links sort of moving. I think it actually suits this watch, but just be aware of that. But when it is on wrist, it looks really cool. It feels really nice, and it's just something really different. And I have to admit, as sort of we expect with these sort of watches that we love, we think about them a lot, but nobody else seems to really care, and that's perfectly fine. I don't wear watches because I'm looking for other people to go, wow, look at that. But this one here, this one's actually had quite a few comments. I think it's pretty much the only watch that I've ever worn that has actually had comments, or at least beyond one comment. So you just got to press it to turn the light on. So what do I like about this watch? What don't I like about it? And what would I change? Really, what I like about this watch is the look of it, the fun factor of it, the feel on wrist, and the quality. This has a real feeling of quality. There is something special about this watch. It's not a Casio that you're sort of putting on that costs $20. Although I like my $20 Casios, this is something different. It is really beyond next level. It is a lot better. It has a significant, almost sort of luxury feel on wrist. What don't I like about it? Well, I'm never a huge fan of friction lock sort of bracelet clasps. However, I do kind of understand this one. It sort of does keep that profile down. I have found when you turn it on and it turns off and you have to reach around and turn it back on again, that can be slightly annoying. I haven't minded too much because this is a sort of watch within a rotation. However, if this was my only watch or one of a couple of watches, I think that would frustrate me a little bit. It does smudge a lot, but to be honest, it hasn't worried me too much. Yeah, check that out. I cleaned that just a few seconds ago in between sort of takes here, and it's all smudged up again. Hasn't really bothered me when you're wearing it, but yeah, that's a little bit of an issue. And also how much this watch costs. So I'll talk about that again shortly. So what would I change? Well, to be honest, it'd be kind of nice if it could sort of auto turn on as you sort of move your wrist up and down like some smartwatches do or some Casios do. The ridges I like, but perhaps it'd be nice to have perhaps some different surfaces, like a little bit of brushing, a little bit of polishing, maybe something a little bit like that, a little bit of contrasting, give you a little bit extra. But realistically, that's probably it, because this watch has been a watch that I've really enjoyed in my collection. But I want to flip back now to me and talk more about that price. Now, as I've mentioned a few times, this watch cost me 375 Australian dollars. But when I search for it now, there are many, many places trying to sell it for 600 Australian dollars. So if you are keen on this one, please do your research and don't pay too much for it, because if you can save that amount of money on this watch, definitely worthwhile. But even at 375 Australian dollars, it felt like a lot of money when I bought it. As I said, I almost cancelled the purchase order because it was that much money. But when it arrived, that sort of fear, that sort of concerns did dissipate a lot, because it instantly felt like a good quality watch, a fun watch. And as soon as I put it on wrist, I thought, oh yeah, there's something special about this watch. So that price, before that started to freak me out, now started to feel a little bit better. It did still feel like a lot of money, however, for a digital watch or an LED watch, especially when I consider what else I could buy for the money, if I was considering mechanical watches. However, of course, this is not a mechanical watch, so I'm not going to compare it against other mechanical watches. But if I wasn't going to buy this watch, but I wanted this style of watch, what else is out there that I could buy? Well, there's a Hamilton LED watch, which actually looks kind of cool. However, I do like the Bulova better. And I'm glad I like the Bulova better, because the Hamilton is 1,000 Australian dollars. And I'm definitely not going to be spending $1,000 on an LED watch, unfortunately, no matter how much I may like that Hamilton. There's also a Yamaha LED watch out there. That's 400 Australian dollars. So it's a little bit more expensive, but I still much prefer the look and the fun factor of the Bulova. But of course, when you're talking about LED watches, when you're talking about digital watches, there's always much cheaper watches out there available like Casios, and they're by far cheaper than this Bulova. However, they're nowhere near as well made as this watch. Even if I was trying to compare it against maybe a full metal Casio, maybe a full metal Casio G-Shock, well, I think the Bulova would still stand up really well in regards to quality. And it's probably cheaper than those full metal Casios. Now guys, if you enjoyed this video, maybe check these two out next.